Long before the first prayer flag fluttered against a Himalayan wind, before the first butter lamp glowed in a mountain temple, there was only a vast and patient emptiness. The old storytellers of the high plateau described it as a stillness without edge or center, neither light nor darkness, neither warmth nor cold. From this silence, they said, the first faint stirrings of being began to move, the way breath moves through a sleeping body before the eyes have opened. The world had not yet been dreamed, and yet something was beginning to dream it. In the oldest tellings of the Bon people, who walked these snowbound lands long before the teachings of the Buddha arrived from the south, creation began not with a word but with light. A radiance gathered itself in the void, and from that radiance two essences emerged, one bright and one dark, like the two halves of a single egg. The bright essence held within it everything that was ordered and luminous, the warmth of the sun and the patience of stone. The dark essence held the cold deeps, the hidden waters, the secrets buried beneath the ice. Neither was evil, and neither was wholly good. They were simply the two breaths of the same beginning, and from their meeting the shape of the world slowly came into being. The earliest mythmakers spoke of a great cosmic egg that floated in the formless sea of possibility. Within its smooth and gleaming shell, the seeds of all things waited in perfect quiet. When at last the egg cracked open, its broken shell became the white cliffs and the towering peaks, its inner fluid became the lakes and the rushing rivers, and its yolk, golden and brimming with life, became the first beings who would walk and fly and swim across the new-made land. The mountains rose like the spines of sleeping giants, and the wind moved among them for the very first time, carrying with it the memory of the silence from which everything had come. From the heart of this young world arose the law, the shining ones, the gods of the upper realm. They dwelt in the high places where the air is thin and the light is clean, upon the summits that touch the sky. The Tibetans imagined existence as a great vertical order, a ladder rising from the deepest waters to the loftiest heaven. At the very top lived the law, radiant and serene, beings of breath and brightness who watched over the affairs of the world below. Beneath them, in the middle realm of forests and valleys and human dwellings, moved the tsen, fierce red spirits who rode the ridgelines and guarded the passes. And in the lowest realm, in the springs and rivers and the dark beneath the soil, coiled the lu, the serpent spirits, keepers of treasure and of hidden waters, easily angered and slow to forgive. This was the architecture of the early Tibetan cosmos, a layered house of 3 floors, and through all of it ran a single living thread. The Bon priests taught that every mountain had its god, every lake its guardian, every household its protector dwelling quietly above the hearth. The world was crowded with presence. To climb a peak was to enter the home of a deity. To dig a well or turn the soil was to disturb the dwelling of the serpent kings. And so the people learned to move through their land with care and with reverence, offering juniper smoke and whispered words, asking permission of the unseen ones who had been there since the cracking of the cosmic egg. Among the greatest of these early powers were the mountain gods, the proud lords of the snow. Chief among them stood Nyanchen Tangleha, whose vast white shoulders rise above the northern plains, a warrior deity mounted upon a pale horse, his presence felt in every storm that sweeps down from the heights. Beside him in the old reckoning stood his consort, the lake goddess Namtso, her waters mirroring the sky so perfectly that to gaze upon them was to look into heaven itself. Together they embodied the eternal marriage of mountain and water, of the male peak and the female deep, the same two essences that had first emerged from the void at the beginning of all things. The first kings of Tibet, the storytellers insisted, were not born of ordinary flesh. They descended directly from the realm of the law, lowered from the heavens upon a shimmering cord of light, a sky rope that joined the world above to the world below. The earliest of these kings did not die as other men die. When their reign was complete, they simply climbed back up the radiant cord and returned to the heavens from which they had come, leaving no tomb and no bones behind. In this way, the rulers of the high plateau were understood to be living bridges between the divine and the human, their very breath a strand of the sky woven into the body of the earth. But the sky rope did not last forever. The old tale tells of a king who, in a moment of anger or of fear, drew his sword and severed the luminous cord that bound him to the heavens. From that day on, the kings of Tibet became mortal like everyone else. They died and their bodies returned to the soil, and great tombs were raised to hold them. The golden age of easy passage between earth and sky had ended, and a distance opened between gods and men that could no longer be crossed by a simple climb. Yet the longing to bridge that distance never faded, and it would shape the spiritual life of the plateau for thousands of years to come. Then, carried over the high passes from the warm valleys of the south, came a new and transforming light. The teachings of the Buddha arrived in Tibet, and with them came a vast company of new divine beings, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, the enlightened ones who had vowed to remain until every suffering creature was set free. The old gods of the mountains and the rivers did not vanish before this rising tide. Instead, in the imagination of the people, a great meeting took place, a weaving together of the ancient and the new, until the Tibetan pantheon became one of the richest and most layered in all the world. At the center of this newer order shines Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of infinite compassion, known to the Tibetans as Chenrezig. The people came to believe that he had taken their snowy land as his own special care, watching over them with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, each eye seeing a different sorrow, each hand reaching to ease a different pain. From him, it was said, the Tibetan people themselves were descended, born of his union with a mountain spirit in the deep and distant past. And in every Dalai Lama, the great spiritual leaders of later ages, the people saw the living presence of Chenrezig himself, returning again and again out of boundless mercy to guide them. Beside the compassionate Lord stood Tara, the swift and gentle goddess born, the legends say, from a single tear that fell from Avalokiteshvara's eye as he wept for the endless suffering of the world. As the tear touched the ground, it became a shimmering lake, and from the lake rose a lotus, and upon the lotus sat Tara, radiant and ready to act. Where the compassion of Chenrezig is vast and contemplative, the compassion of Tara is quick and fierce and immediate. In her green form, she rushes to the aid of all who call upon her, cutting through fear and danger like a blade of light, and in her white form she offers healing and long life to those who suffer. Yet the Tibetans never forgot that the path to wisdom passes through terror as well as tenderness. And so their pantheon blazes with wrathful deities, the protectors, beings of fearsome aspect wreathed in flame, garlanded with skulls, their faces twisted into expressions of cosmic fury. To the unknowing eye they appear as demons, but the wise understand that their wrath is compassion wearing a terrible mask. These are the guardians who trample ignorance underfoot, who devour the poisons of greed and hatred, who stand at the gates of the mind to drive back the forces that would keep a soul in darkness. Among them rides Palden Lamo, the great protectress, the only female among the principal guardians, crossing a sea of blood upon her mule, a goddess of overwhelming power who defends the teachings against all who would destroy them. The Tibetan storytellers wove all of these beings into a single living tapestry. The ancient mountain gods became the local protectors, bound by oath, the legends say, to serve the higher teachings after being tamed by the great masters who first brought enlightenment to the land. Chief among these masters was Padmasambhava, the lotus-born, a figure half historical and half divine, who journeyed across the plateau subduing the fierce old spirits one by one. He did not destroy them, he converted them. He turned the wild gods of storm and stone into sworn defenders of the path, so that the very powers who had once ruled the land by fear now stood as its guardians. In this great act of binding and transforming, the old world and the new became one. And so the full shape of the Tibetan heavens revealed itself, a vast and crowded cosmos rising in tier upon tier. At the foundation lay the serpent kings in their hidden waters, and the mountain lords upon their snowy thrones, and the red riders of the high passes. Above them moved the protectors in their rings of fire, fierce and faithful. Higher still shone the compassionate ones, Tara and Chenrezig, reaching down to lift the suffering world. And at the very summit, beyond form and beyond name, dwelt the enlightened Buddhas in the clear light of perfect peace, the same clear light, perhaps, from which the first radiance had gathered itself at the beginning of all things. To this day the prayer flags carry their whispered words upward on the wind, the same wind that first moved among the newborn mountains. The butter lamps still glow in the dim halls, small earthbound stars echoing the radiance of the void. And the people of the high plateau still walk their ancient land with reverence, knowing that every peak holds its god, every lake its guardian, every quiet hearth its watchful protector. The cosmic egg cracked open long ago, and from its golden heart poured forth a world so full of presence that nothing in it has ever truly been alone. In the great silence between the mountains, if you listen closely, you can still hear the first breath stirring, patient and eternal, dreaming the world into being.